Hey everybody, welcome to Wood with Handles, a baseball podcast for fans by fans. This is episode 12 for the week of July 1st. I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh.
I'm Jonny.
We'd like to welcome our newest host to the show, Jonny. He will be with us almost every week going forward. Obviously, none of us are here every week, but he will be replacing Carl, who was the former host of the show, and basically we look forward to having a different view on the show than kind of our AL Central fandom. Jonny has been on the show before on episode 3 with MLB Memes. You can go back and check that out if you would like. Starting out the week, we'd like to talk about basically a little bit of news and politics. The Supreme Court overturned the ruling on gay rights this past week, and the Mariners of Seattle decided that this Sunday, which will be the day before you guys are listening to this podcast, they will be flying the gay pride flag throughout their stadium. I thought this would catch on more, and I thought more teams would do it, but from what I've read, they are still the only team to do it, even though they're not a California-based team. It's pretty cool. I don't know that it's something that we need to go in crazy amount of detail about. Do you guys have anything interesting to say, or?
I don't really have anything interesting to say because, I mean, we could spend hours upon hours upon hours on this, but, you know, good for the Mariners. This is really cool that they're doing this, and Seattle's a pretty progressive city, and yeah, just good for them. I mean, being the first one to do it, and right now being the only team to do it, this is really cool on their part, so I'm glad they're doing something.
Moving on to our next topic, A-Rod the other day announced on Twitter that his rehab is going pretty darn good, and he is going to be able to start doing some baseball activity in the coming weeks here. Brian Cashman was not too happy with him announcing that. Basically, in an interview said, if the Yankees want to announce something, they'll announce it. A-Rod just needs to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, this was really weird. I mean, I kind of wavered on it a little bit when I first heard about it. I kind of said, you know, good for Brian Cashman because I hate A-Rod. I think he's my most despised baseball player of all time. But then after I sat and I thought about it for a moment, it's like, here's the thing. I don't know how an owner or a GM can say this about anybody on their team. I don't think it's good for the Yankees organization. I think Brian Cashman messed up big time here. Even if it is A-Rod, you can't do that. You have to be a little bit more professional than that on Brian Cashman's part.
I completely agree with you, but it just seems like this whole A-Rod Yankees relationship has been breaking down ever since the contract signed. I mean, they've had the good times with the World Series in 2007, but in the long run, I mean, he's just been a diva for the entire team. And just recently, I didn't even know this until a couple days ago, but A-Rod actually joined Twitter, which just seems like the worst place for A-Rod to be with all the negativity on Twitter to begin with. So it should be interesting to track for the next couple months.
Yeah, I agree that it's not professional that he did it. He shouldn't have done it. You're supposed to be kind of the face of your organization, but clearly he is frustrated with A-Rod. I think it's clear the Yankees hate A-Rod and A-Rod hates the Yankees at this point, and
okay, I'm sorry to cut you off. I don't think A-Rod hates the Yankees. I think A-Rod has a little bit more love for the Yankees than the Yankees do with him. But I think A-Rod came out and did another interview in which he kind of backed off the stand saying, you know, I don't know when I'm coming back. It might not even be this time. So this just happened this week after they had this Brian Cashman interview thing. But continue.
You know, yeah, I mean, that's all I had to say. I mean, I think collectively as Yankees haters, I loved it, but it wasn't professional. He shouldn't say those things. In the moment, I was pumped about it. I was like, yeah, way to go, Cashman.
Yeah, I was the same way. I agree.
I mean, looking back on it, it definitely is not professional, and I don't think it's going to necessarily look bad on Cashman because Cashman, for the most part, has ran a pretty great organization since he's been there. But I don't think it looks good on him, and I don't think in the future you'll see this kind of stuff. I think he's going to censor himself a little bit, and like John just said, A-Rod being on Twitter, I'm sure he's going to fuck up more. But I mean, it's just a matter of time before we see all that happen. Moving on to the other side of the country, this is more Johnny's territory. Yasiel Puig is basically on the start to become, in my opinion, NL MVP and just about every other thing that you could win this season because he's unstoppable at this point. Every time someone seems to figure out something against him, he changes up. The Dodgers, until last night, Friday night, were on a 6-game winning streak. They're still 6 games out of first, but I mean, they're definitely on a hot streak right now.
Yeah, I mean, they were 9 back at the beginning of the week, and they happened to chip 3 games off of it. So now they're only 6 games back in that division, and playing hot, and Puig's definitely been the center point of the lineup and been the guy that's sparking the team. But, to chip 3 games off the lead in a week, it's definitely doing something.
Yeah, I mean, another thing with the Dodgers is they're finally getting healthy. Matt Kemp's just getting back. Hanley Ramirez is just getting back. We're finally seeing that lineup that we saw at the beginning of the year. We're like, whoa, this is a pretty good Dodgers lineup. And with Yasiel Puig, the emergence of him, I mean, they have maybe one of the best lineups in the entire NL. So it'll be really interesting to see for the next few months. Puig's batting .427. I mean, everyone here in Dodgerland is basically trying to campaign for this guy to become an all-star. And I know there's a big controversy all over the internet in terms of he's only played for, just about 3 weeks. He doesn't deserve to be on. But just based on what kind of a hitter he is, I mean, you'd probably want him on the all-star game. So, I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, he should be there. I agree.
Yeah, I like him in the All-Star game. And I mean, in the end, I know the way they've changed the All-Star game around to make it so it actually means something. But in the end, the All-Star game in any sport is publicity. It's for fun. I mean, he's the face of baseball right now. I mean, he might not be forever, but today he's the face of baseball. And to not have him there somehow, sure, you don't put him in the starting lineup if you don't feel comfortable with that. But like to not have him on the team whatsoever, it's a shame.
Yeah, real quick, I don't follow the stats all too much. I know over here in the East Coast, in the Midwest, we get a lot of Puig, and you hear it on SportsCenter, you hear it on MLB Network. But hasn't Hanley Ramirez been on a bit of a tear this week too? And he's kind of been the guy that's helped him come along a little bit now.
He has. I mean, he's pinch hit a few times and gone for hits, but I believe he's homered 3 or 4 times. I think 3 times since he's been back in just over a week. So it's been pretty impressive, and a lot of them have been like pretty big bombs too. So he's been very impressive. I mean, he was one of the best premier position players in baseball a few years ago. Dodgers traded for him last year. It looks like he's starting to regain some of that back. And if he can become that player that he was a few years ago, I mean, really watch out for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, that's important for LA because if Hanley Ramirez can start hitting and producing the way he's capable of, I mean, him and Puig, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, and I mean, the NL West is turning into quite the division between the Padres on their recent hot streak and now the Dodgers, and the Diamondbacks have, for the most part, played well this whole season. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I don't think anybody is the clear-cut winner in that division right now.
I'd still say the Dodgers are big underdogs by how many games they're back. The Diamondbacks have been playing well, and as we've learned from previous years, you just can't out the Giants.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the Giants are kind of shockingly, I don't want to say bad, but not as good as they have been lately. I mean, there's nothing that would lead you to believe that they would be performing.
They've been pretty bad, I'm not going to lie. I mean, there's been a lot of they're not hitting the ball. They're not playing well defensively. Their pitching has been real bad. There's just nothing to be positive about with the Giants, and that's maybe a little uncharacteristic of them. I guess I kind of still expect them to be there at the end just because it's the Giants. But this division right now is wide open.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think obviously, like Johnny said, the Dodgers being back as much as they are puts them at a disadvantage, but we're not even to the All-Star break yet, and I don't think the Padres will keep up what they're doing. Bravo if they do, but I don't think that.
And likewise, I don't see the Rockies keeping up with what they're doing with their pitching staff and injuries of late.
Yeah, so I mean, the Dodgers stand a chance in my opinion. Obviously, the Giants are always there, but the only team that I could see between other than the Dodgers and the Giants would be the Padres. But the odds of them keeping that up are just almost slim to none.
Yeah, you mean the Diamondbacks, the Padres, because the Diamondbacks have
the Diamondbacks too
all year.
Yeah,
I kind of
definitely an MVP candidate in the NL.
Definitely. I mean, Goldschmidt's been phenomenal. It's nothing to kind of discount at all.
Isn't it a little odd, though, that the Diamondbacks have been in first almost all year, and kind of we're sitting here not even giving them a chance?
It's really interesting because at the beginning of the year, they traded Justin Upton for basically Martin Prado and Randall Delgado, and everyone wrote them off. They've also had some pretty bad injuries along the way, too. I mean, Daniel Hudson wasn't there at the beginning of the year, and he's had a setback and not been able. He's not coming back anytime soon. And they also, and Adam Eaton, who was projected to be a big breakout player for the team this year, hasn't played a game this season. So despite all that, I mean, we have to give a lot of props to Arizona because they've had a fantastic season so far. And, I mean, on a much smaller payroll than the Giants and the Dodgers. And it doesn't look like they're slowing down at all.
Will Middlebrooks was just designated on assignment along with a couple other players we will talk about. This one I didn't really know much about or hear much about, but I was kind of going through my baseball news and I seen this and it seemed kind of odd, but then I looked, he's been performing really shitty. I mean, this is to me one of the bigger names that has been DFA'd recently.
Yeah, wasn't he kind of the guy at third for the Red Sox here, and now they've just DFA'd him, and who knows what this is going to go. This is kind of odd. I don't know. I don't know what to think of this.
Well, I mean, I think last year when he came up and he just tore the cover off the ball before he got injured, I think he was hitting 288 with double-digit home runs in just under half a season. Everyone thought he was going to be the solution for this team. I think a lot of scouts were saying that he was overachieving. He had a high BABIP, and just overall, he wasn't supposed to keep this up. So I think Red Sox fans and just Boston in general got their expectations higher than they should. I mean, he's a good player, but he wasn't as good as what he showed last year, and he was due for probably a cold streak. And we're going to see some other players. Maybe we'll see Xander Bogaerts at some time up this year. He's going to be playing third base in the minors right now. So, I mean, it's definitely interesting, but unfortunate for Middlebrooks.
Yeah, to me, like I said, it kind of felt like it came out of left field. I didn't really fully expect it, but I mean, it makes sense looking at his numbers. Like you said, he's definitely on a cold streak from last year. He's nowhere near what he was last year. And I mean, yeah, you got to do what you got to do as an organization. I mean, you can't hold loyalties to someone because they're a name or they sell jerseys or whatever. I mean, it just, like I said, more of a shocker to me.
Well, it's a good thing for Boston because it definitely shows that they're in it to win it. I mean, pardon my lack of pun or terrible saying right there, but you know, they're definitely there to win ball games, and sending Middlebrooks down is maybe it gives everybody in Boston kind of a feel that they're going for it, and they're just not letting him stay there so he can, because he's the name. So
yeah, another player that was just DFA'd, Carlos Marmol. A lot of people kind of either seen this coming or a big trade with him coming. Obviously, the closer market is very limited. What do you guys kind of think about this? I mean, it's weird to me, or it's expected to me. Obviously, I'm here in Chicago, and that's all people have talked about is either sending him to the minors or trading him. I think that there's a team that could use him. I don't think that he's completely useless. He's just clearly not working for the Cubs, and there's something that needed to be done, but they sent him down to the minor leagues. I think he'll be optioned for a trade at some point in time, but right now he's playing in AAA.
I kind of disagree with you. I think he's useless. This was a long time coming. It probably should have happened a long, long time ago. I don't know if anybody's going to want to pick him up, just given his history from this year and blowing as many saves and being as bad as he's been. I don't see a positive future for Marmol right now. I mean, maybe next year if somebody wants to give him a chance, but I think he's going to be down there for a while this year if he ever gets back up.
I have to agree with Ryan. I feel like it's been a long time coming. His stuff is just too wild. It has been too wild for years. At the beginning of the year when I heard they were going to make Marmol the closer to try to get him some trade value, to try to move him sometime this year, I was thinking to myself, that involves him pitching well, which hasn't happened in a while, so I don't see this. And we've seen the Cubs resort to Kevin Gregg, the ultimate journeyman of all closers, to carry their team and doing pretty well, and probably better than Marmol has in a long time. So I can't see this guy garnering any sort of trade value to the point where he would be traded for anything but a very marginal prospect at this point.
Yeah, I don't see how the Cubs could have stuck with him as long as they did, because he was just blowing game after game after lead. I mean, they could have a lot more wins than they do right now just because of the sheer amount of runs he's given up and the amount of saves he's blown. But I don't understand why they kept running him back out there.
It's because the Cubs don't give a shit. I mean, being here in Chicago, like Theo Epstein's on TV every day because in Theo we trust and everything and all. But he set out right at the beginning of the season. They don't plan on actually contending for anything until like 2015. So like the organization literally does not care. And that's why he was out there for as long as he was, and they wanted trade value out of him. And the only reason I make my statement different from you guys is the trade market, especially for closers, is so limited. There's only, 2 or 3 guys who are really worth anything. So sure, he might not be the greatest starter on the planet, but I just feel like there's a team out there somewhere who needs a closer, who would take that chance on him. They might not give him a big contract. Cubs might have to eat the rest of whatever is on his contract. They might kind of give him the Jose Valverde option, but that's the only reason I disagree. But I completely agree that he's kind of worthless lately and hasn't really been what he needs to be in a long time. But I just think that there's somewhere in there someone could have a use for him.
Well, when you say the closer market is very thin right now, I mean, there's no team in the league that's trading for Carlos Marmol to be their closer. There's no team in the league that's probably even trading him to be their setup guy at this point either. I mean, he's just a middle relief guy with some upside at this point. And I feel as if there are going to be plenty of relievers available. I mean, the one reason the Cubs have stuck with Marmol for so long is because they have been rebuilding, and when you are rebuilding, middle relief and just relief in general is something that you can put together at the end, and it's not something that's that consistent from year to year. So, I mean, I definitely think we'll see a lot of closers and middle relievers getting moved throughout the rest before the trade deadline. I don't think Marmol is going to be one of them.
Now moving back to the Yankees, they're screwed on injuries. Jeter says he's coming back at some point in time now. Teixeira is out for the season now. Youkilis is out for the season now. Granderson should be back soon if he's not back already. I could be wrong on that. And I mean, they're keeping up, and they really don't have anybody. We all talked about for a while how great it was that they were keeping up with their nobodies for a long time, but it was kind of dying off. But they've been able to kind of keep in the race there. Obviously, the Blue Jays are doing phenomenal right now and keep creeping up there to make it an interesting division because everybody in that division's over 500 right now. But it's just interesting how they're able to keep up without anybody.
Yeah, it's only June. It's June 28th, I think today is. And right now they're 5.5 back, but in that division that may be insurmountable, as well as Boston's played and Baltimore is going to be right there. And then Tampa Bay is right behind them. And Toronto has been better. They're chipping away at that lead. I think it was only a matter of time before reality set in with the Yankees. They've kept pace all this time, but it's just too many injuries at one time for them to play well for any sustained amount of time. I think that was just, they were waiting for the shoe to fall, and it did. And now essentially they've got Ichiro and they've got Cano and then a bunch of AAA guys surrounding them. So like I said, I think it was only a matter of time.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I don't see any team in the AL East, which every team, I believe, as of yesterday, was at 500 or better, the most competitive division of the league. I don't see any team that's that perfect that doesn't have some serious flaws in it now. So I think the Yankees are likely to keep up their 532 win percentage with the roster they have now, but I do think it's possible. And I mean, someone's going to emerge from this. And I mean, if someone goes on a nice streak like the Blue Jays did like a week or so ago, I mean, I think it's still anyone's division, and very much the Yankees have a shot at it.
Yeah, like I said, I agree. I don't think anybody is out. Maybe the Rays. That's probably the closest thing to a team that I could say is out of it, quote unquote. But I don't even think they're out of it. Every team, including the terrible Blue Jays for a while there, have been great lately. I mean, everybody's over 500. Probably the hardest division for a long time. It was the NL Central, but now this is nuts, and everyone's playing great, and they're the hardest teams to beat across the board. Everyone stands a chance to. I think the Yankees will come out in the end, maybe as a wild card. I don't think they will win the division, but that's just my personal opinion.
I think you're being a little optimistic there, but that's fine.
I mean, when we look at the Orioles, a team that's second in their, I believe, 7 or 8 games over 500, they're running together a rotation of Jason Hamill, Miguel Gonzalez, Charles Tillman, Zach Britton. I mean, I'd say the Yankees have a much better rotation than the Orioles right now, so I think they're all offense. The Yankees are a little bit more balanced, and they're gonna eventually get back. Jeter, and maybe A-Rod will be giving them something at some point. So, I mean, I do think that the Yankees are in it for the long run this year.
Yeah, I think they stand a chance. Maybe not first place. That might be a little pushing it for my personal predictions. But I think obviously the wild card will probably come out of the division with everybody being over 500, if not both the wild cards. So if they can keep up the pace that they're currently going at for the full division, then it's going to be interesting till the end. Another team that's been legitimately playing well. I don't know about today, but as of yesterday, they were tied for the best record in all of baseball. As the
They
Pittsburgh
are
Pirates.
1 game up on St. Louis as of today.
So they have the best record in all of baseball.
They definitely do. I'm going to go on record, and I'm going to say it. I don't care if people get mad at me or people
on the record, everyone hear it.
Yep, I don't care. I am firmly on the Pittsburgh bandwagon. I'm not jumping ship. I'm 100% firmly on the Pittsburgh bandwagon, and I'm not getting off.
I mean, they're good. We know the Pittsburgh Pirates, though. All-Star break comes, and then the great Titanic sink will happen.
Oh, this ship is not sinking this year. They're a good team. I've got faith.
I got to agree with Ryan on this one too, just because. I mean, it's just a trendy thing to say every year, well, the Pittsburgh Pirates are just going to blow into the second half because that's what they do. Yeah. They are 19 games over 500 right now, and I'm not sure what their high in the last 20 years since this whole non-over 500 game win streak or game win season percentage has happened for, but I do not believe that they've ever been 19 games over 500 and not finished over 500 at any point in the last 20 years. So
yeah, I mean, granted they're playing in one of the toughest divisions in baseball, but they've been doing it with pitching. And when you get in good pitching and then you get timely hitting, I mean, you can't ask for any more. And they've done everything as brilliantly as they can this year. And they're in it for the long haul. I've got to believe it. I don't foresee any collapse. If they do, it's going to be a pretty epic collapse, but like I said, I'm firmly there, and especially having Garrett Cole, who's now 4-0. And then, I mean, you've got Grilly in the back end closing down games. He's been one of the best closers in the league. And then you got McCutchen, He was an MVP candidate last year up until the All-Star break, and you can always count on him to be the guy for that organization. But like I said, I'm firmly on this bandwagon. I'm not jumping off, and I'm picking these guys. I like them. I like them a lot. I can't say enough about them.
I don't know if I'm going to take them to win the division or even make the playoffs, but I definitely think that the streak is over and they will finish this season over 500. You can put that on the record.
Speaking of Garrett Cole, he's the first rookie to start 4-0. I forgot since what year. I just seen it on ESPN this morning, but basically there's only one rookie to ever have a better start, and they were 5-0. Obviously, we'll see if Garrett Cole can finish that rookie season out at least 5-0, if not better, and break those records. I mean, pitching obviously has been a strong point for them. They're doing very well in the pitching area, Cole and Grilly and the other starting rotation. But it's pretty amazing to see. I don't know. It would be an epic collapse if they collapse. Maybe I will retract my statement and say they won't go under 500. But I definitely don't think that in that division they stand a chance. That's a really tough division with the Reds and the Cardinals in that division. It's hard for me to believe that they can come out of that alive.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I like what I see. Like I said, I'm firmly on the bandwagon, so I don't know if I'm going to pick them to win the division, but they're definitely going to be a lot better than they always have, and they're going to finish over 500. They're going to finish well over. Like you said, it's the Cardinals and it's the Reds. Who knows if they'll win it or even make the playoffs, but the future is bright, and I think they don't even need Garrett Cole to be lights out. They need him to be good. And if he stays pitching as well as he has, then they're going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Back to Garrett Cole for a second. People have been really just giving this guy a lot of credit and just attention because of his 4-0 starts. But the real interesting to look at is when this guy was at the minors before this year and even at UCLA, he really had some overpowering stuff. In 2012, in AAA, he had a 10.5 K per 9 ratio. But this year at AAA, he only was at 6.22 K per 9. And so far for the Pirates, he's only been at a 4.07 K per 9. So it doesn't seem like what he's doing is a little bit that sustainable at all. I think he's getting a little bit lucky in terms of how the game's turned out and just pitching in general. So I definitely see a lot of regression coming in the next couple of weeks for Garrett Cole, and he has not been as good as advertised thus far.
Do you think he will get to 5-0 or 6-0 to break whatever record is there?
I mean, I'm not sure what the record is off top head, but I don't really, to be blunt, I don't really care because I don't think wins is an important pitching stat to begin with. I think it's mostly offensive based. So, I mean, if he gets there, that's great for him. It'll be good for the organization if they hold the record on that. But it's not something I can feel confidently predicting one way or the other.
The thing about Garrett Cole is it seems like they play well when he's out there on the mound. And they give him run support, and that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, coming from Chicago where Chris Sale never gets run support, I know how big that is. Keeping in the pitching world, Max Scherzer started 12-0 now. Ryan, this will be your cup of tea, but that's pretty amazing. First pitcher since 1986, I believe. Roger Clemens did it, 12-0. It's just, I mean, is he the best pitcher in baseball right now?
Right now, I think I don't know if I want to say he's the best pitcher in baseball, because like Jonny just said, I don't know how much you can put into record, in wins. The more curious thing to me is he is 12-0, and the Tigers are only 2 games up on the Cleveland Indians right now. As well as he's pitched and as brilliantly as he's pitched, as good as he's been, the lack of production is still there for the Tigers. But I mean, I don't want to get off topic, but yeah, I think he's definitely one of the best pitchers. And there's been signs the last few years where he's been trending upwards and showing that he can be that guy. Justin Verlander hasn't been lights out this year. It's been a little different for the Tigers because Verlander typically is brilliant and he hasn't been good. And I'm sure I'm going to get killed by Tigers fans for saying that, but Justin Verlander just plain has been flat this year. And they needed Max Scherzer or somebody else in that in the rotation to come out and play well. And Scherzer's stepped up big time. And every time Scherzer's out there, they give him runs, and that's the most important thing. But yeah, I guess I'll say it. He's one of the better pitchers in the league this year.
He's definitely one of the best pitchers in the league this year, especially statistically wise. But I don't know if you could say he's the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, Ryan, if you had one at a Game 7 right now, who do you want on the mound? Do you really want Max Scherzer over Justin Verlander on the mound today for a Game 7?
No, I'm taking Verlander all day.
And I think there are other pitchers in the league. I think Clayton Kershaw is amongst the cream of the crop. Adam Wainwright. I mean, it's hard to discount what Matt Harvey's done so far in his career. I mean, I like Max Scherzer a lot. I don't think I can put him in the top 3 pitchers in the league right now.
No, and I mean, he's playing in a terrible division too. So, I mean, he's playing against a lot of bad teams, which maybe has a little bit to do with it. You can't discount a 12-0 record for anything because it's pretty impressive. He hasn't lost a game, and he's been
absolutely
really, really good in his starts. But I think once you dig a little deeper, you'll find out that the 12-0 may be a little deceiving, just based on the pure fact that they play in the AL Central. And the Tigers play hard for him, but like you said, Jonny, I don't think he's up in the top 3, but he's one of the better pitchers in the league this year.
So, getting a little off topic, who would you say is the Tigers' ace? Would he be the Tigers' ace for this year, or would you still take Verlander?
Overall, no, he's not the Tigers' ace. Verlander's always going to be the ace. I think the Tigers are very fortunate because I think in a sense they have 3 or 4 guys that could be potential aces for any club at any time with Verlander, and then they have Scherzer, they have Sanchez, and they have Pfister. So they've been very lucky that they can call any one of those guys, could be an ace for any staff. But I think he's been the ace this year. Is he the ace for the team overall? No, but he's definitely the ace this year.
I have to agree too. I don't really get caught up on the whole ace, number 2, number 3 thing. It's just whoever's pitching now. I mean, clearly he's been the best pitcher on the Tigers this year and definitely would have been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. But at the end of the day, Justin Verlander is still, I mean, he looks like he's making his way to Cooperstown at some point. And, I mean, he's still very much in the prime of his career, so it'd be hard to discount Justin Verlander at the expense of Max Scherzer.
Yeah, and I've said it before. I think Justin Verlander was due for kind of a down year. And
absolutely.
Statistically speaking, you can't keep up the pace he's been at the last few years. It's really, really hard, and you very, very rarely see it. And you've seen it this year kind of with some other guys, but I think Verlander will find it again. But this year, it might be Max Scherzer's time this year.
Yeah. Moving on. Chris Davis has the most home runs in baseball this year, but he was not put on the home run derby ballot. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's bad. I mean, everyone wants to see Chris Davis in the home run derby. He's been one of the hottest hitters in the league all year long. The way he finished the second half last year, nobody thought he was going to be for real, but he's actually proved that all year long he's just been one of the best power hitters in all of baseball, and it's a shame that we're not going to get to see him in the home run derby.
Yeah, personally, this doesn't bother me. I mean, there's been a lot of debate by players and fans of the validity of the home run derby, whether it actually, a lot of players don't want to do it because they say it ruins their swing because you have to change everything to go into this home run derby. And then there's always that tiny risk of injury. But I mean, to be honest, I'm as big as a baseball fan I am. I usually don't watch a home run derby, so this doesn't matter to me a lot. But if you like seeing home runs and if you like Chris Davis, then you're going to be a little pissed off. The only thing I think it hurts Davis is that he's not a big household name yet.
Well, the issue for me is that he's not even, it's not an option. He's not even considered. That's the issue for me. I mean, he has the most home runs in baseball. Sure, he's not a household name, but I mean, numbers wise, he's the best, and he's not even considered. So sure, he might come back and say, hey, I don't want to do it because it'll mess up my swing or injuries or whatever, but that's not even an option to him. He's not even considered. And then you got Robinson Cano for the American League, who's the head of it, and he didn't hit any last year. And he's the fucking captain for the American League. So it just seems wrong.
Yeah, I think the MLB, I mean, they may have messed it up, but I think they went all in on the New York theme this year. And you've seen it with both Cano and then David Wright being the two captains. I don't even know what David Wright's done this year. I don't think he's really done much of anything. But I think the MLB is all in on New York, and since it's at, I think it's Citi Field?
Yep.
Is that what the name of the stadium is? Yeah, so I mean, I think definitely it was less about who's in it and more about putting New York on display, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty comical that Robinson is the captain of the AL, but it definitely seems like it's because it's in New York this year. I actually love the Home Run Derby. I think it's the best the non-All-Star game festivity in all of sports right now. I mean, the slam dunk competition in basketball has really lost its cachet over the last few years without any named players actually joining it. I mean, hockey has some decent skill competitions, but the home run derby is just a consistent draw for me. And I know it doesn't mean anything. It definitely affects some player swing, but I would definitely like to see the best home run hitters in it. And I'll definitely be watching no matter what.
Yeah, like David Wright is the captain for the NL, and he's got right now 12 home runs. He's 15th in the National League. So, I mean, I guess it is what it is, and that's what's going to happen. But it's a little disappointing, but I don't know. I guess you got to take it for what it's worth.
Yeah. Moving on. Bryce Harper started rehab again. Still wearing a brace on his knee, but he's playing some AAA ball. Not sure. We don't have a set date or time or expectation for when he'll be back in the Nationals lineup. They really need him right now. But I guess it's a good sign that he's playing again at least.
Yeah, everybody knows my love for Bryce Harper. Not going to deny it. But this is really good for Washington. They need every bit of Bryce Harper that they can get, and hopefully he's learned his lesson and they've maybe gotten the message through to just kind of tone it down a little bit and don't for the sake of your body, don't kill yourself. But this couldn't come at a better time for Washington. Honestly, they need him back, and they need him back in a hurry.
Well, Washington was a big favorite to make the postseason, even win the division, although Atlanta has a huge lead right now. And Bryce Harper is without a doubt the best hitter, despite only being, I believe, 20 years old, or is he 21 now?
I think he just turned 21.
Literally just turned 21 a few months ago, yeah.
He's the best hitter on the team.
Yeah.
They need him, and they need him now, and they need him to hit. And baseball's just a better place and more fun when Bryce Harper's around. So I really hope he gets back soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think he will be a big help to the team no matter what. And they definitely need to get him in there. The Nationals are struggling among many teams in baseball right now. There's a lot of talk about trade deadline and who's going to go, who's going to stay, where they're going to go, and who needs what. I know, obviously, I'm a White Sox fan. I would like to see the White Sox clear house, but what do you guys think about just the trade deadline as a whole? What are the big names who are going to get moved, and kind of who's going to be the big buyers and sellers?
It's hard to tell. I think, like you said, you've been saying it for a long time now. I think the White Sox have to be a huge seller. I think they're going to try and sell everybody, as many people as they can get rid of. It seems like anybody on that team is being dangled right now except for Konerko.
Because nobody wants his broken ass.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really see a whole, I don't know who you'd say is a buyer or seller, but there's some big, well, I guess maybe not huge names, but there's some definitely guys that are out there that could be pretty impact players for people right now.
Looking at a list of some potential names that could be dealt around, I definitely think Matt Garza's a big one. I mean, I think this is the last year of his contract. Correct me if I'm wrong, and he's been pitching very well recently. As we've talked about earlier, the Cubs are definitely looking to rebuild. I definitely see Garza going somewhere, and maybe even well before the trade deadline, we could see him getting moved in the next couple of weeks. I think as far as buyers go, the Tigers, I mean, they're first in division. I mean, they're the favorites in their division for the last few years. They desperately need some middle relief. Looking at the AL West, I think Texas Rangers are first right now, but their starting pitching is really questionable. I mean, Rangers ballpark isn't the best place for a pitcher, but I could definitely see them making a move for Garza.
Yeah, speaking of, we were just talking about the Nationals. I think Adam LaRoche is a pretty big name that could get moved, that could really help somebody. Whether or not he does, we'll see. There's been rumors of Chase Utley. His demise have been pretty evident the last few years. Over at the Dodgers, I've heard Andre Ethier's name mentioned. Is there any validity to that?
Well, getting back with Chase Utley, I just wanted to point out that Chase Utley is having a very good year this year. So I think this is the first year he's been healthy for the most part coming into the season. So I think he'd be a real boost for a contender. But going back to the Dodgers, as a Dodger fan myself, I'm like the last one to complain about what a big contract signed. But when Andre Ethier was signed for $85 million a year or so, a year and a half ago, I just thought it was an abomination of a contract because he's a marginal outfielder and he was definitely declining. And with the emergence of Puig, they just don't have a place for him. But at the same time, I can't see another team forking over any significant money for a guy who's probably a platoon outfielder at this point. The Dodgers would love to get rid of him if there's a match somewhere.
Do you think they want to get rid of him just because they don't have a spot for him, or they want to unload the contract?
Or
a little bit of both.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, they don't want to. I mean, he's probably a very proud guy. I mean, he's been a borderline all-star or an all-star at years. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't think he's made the all-star team, but I mean, there are definitely teams where he could be starting on regularly. And when the Dodgers are healthy, whenever they get Carl Crawford back, I mean, there's just not a place for him, and they have depth outside of Ethier too with Scott Van Slyke and Jock Peterson in the minors, so they really just don't need Andre Ethier, and they don't want to be paying that much money for a fourth outfielder. So it's not the money per se, but it's the money for a position that they don't need.
Right. Another kind of big name, and I kind of wanted to see where you guys are at on this one, or if you even think it's possible, is Giancarlo Stanton getting moved from Miami.
That was a big rumor at the beginning of the season. I don't see it happening at this point. I think if he moves, someone's going to have to pay him a lot of money. And he can stay, and he got injured once this year, which always makes people kind of shake in their boots a little bit, especially somebody as young as him. I don't think he's going anywhere, but I think he's a great player, and he deserves something better than Miami for sure.
I mean, it's the Marlins. Would we really be surprised if they signed him to a 10-year contract tomorrow or if he got traded tomorrow?
No.
I mean,
no.
We wouldn't be surprised either way. I think it's silly to speculate. I obviously don't think they should trade him because I think he's only 23 and he's just one of the best power hitters in the league already. He's definitely he's definitely the franchise player that they could build up for many years. So I think it would be silly to think that they could get something better. And if they're too cheap to re-sign him, that's just a real shame for the team and the city.
Yeah, I agree. Another name that's been going around, and I'm going to butcher his name, but it's the closer from the Brewers, Gallardo, I believe it is.
Giovanni Gallardo?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
He's been a big name. They don't seem so ready to trade him as other teams seem to go, but I've heard that for the right offer, they would part ways with him.
Gallardo's definitely struggled this year, but I think he's also a very valuable pitcher at the same time. I think a team would absolutely take a chance on him. I think it's all going to depend on what the price tag is.
Yeah. Obviously, teams like the Tigers, money is not really an issue, and that's a position they really need. So maybe they'll go there. I've also heard for the Tigers, Jesse Crain from the White Sox coming over. Jesse Crane's been one of the only good aspects of the White Sox this year, and he's kind of a pointless player and a relief pitcher, so he could actually do some good for the Tigers in the closing role.
See, here's the thing about the Tigers. I mean, being in the Midwest here and being a huge Tigers fan, any middle relief or closer that's going to be mentioned out there, you're going to hear the Tigers connected to it just because they have a huge sum of money that they can throw at them. Whether or not they're going to actually make a serious run at somebody, who knows? But you're going to hear every name possible connected with the Tigers. And who knows? Maybe they could sign one or two of them, or they could sign none of them. But I think you're going to hear the Tigers in connection with a lot of names coming up here pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think the Tigers are just playing it really smart. I think they realize they don't need a reliever to win the division or even make the playoffs. So I think they're just waiting around the deadline for a deal to be made, because come playoff time, they're definitely going to need those extra arms coming out of the bullpen. Right now, not so much. I just don't think they want to blow their load on a reliever until they really have to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the back of that bullpen is the weak spot.
And I think
they're still winning games, and they're still going to win the AL Central. I mean, they could not show up for a week's worth of games and still win the fucking division. It's a terrible division. It's a joke of a division. So, I mean, they're going to come out on top whether they have a closer or not. They could let Valverde pitch full games from now on, and they would still win the division. So
yeah, and I think if I heard right, I believe they just recalled Bruce Rondon, who they had previously thought was going to be their closer at the beginning of the year, and then he blew a bunch of games, and they sent him down and hadn't done anything with him all year. But I believe they just recalled him back up, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
They did, but Leland said he is not there to be the closer.
Yeah, well, whatever. Well, that's it for episode 12 of Wood with Handles. Thanks for listening.
You can find us online on Twitter at Wood with Handles, Facebook.com/Wood with Handles, and on YouTube by searching Wood with Handles.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Jonny.